Hello, and welcome to episode one of my series titled Play Her Story. This is a project built to empower young girls, celebrate former female athletes, and highlight how sports can help women fully step into their confidence and womanhood. And to start this journey, I'm sitting down with a woman who embodies everything this series stands for. Her achievements are unmatched. She's Mizzou's all-time leader in total blocks. She's a four-time AVCA All-American. She's the holder of multiple single season records, one of the most dominant middles ever in the SEC. Oh, and if that wasn't enough, she was inducted into the 2025 Mizzou Athletics Hall of Fame, joining some of the biggest names ever to represent the university. Beyond the accolades, she embodies what it means to be a strong, confident woman, and that makes her the first guest for the series focused on empowerment. Hello, Alyssa. How are you doing today?
I am great. I am so happy to be here. Thanks so much for thinking of me.
No,
It's an amazing project.
of course. I kind of want to talk about how you got your start. I see you're from Georgia originally. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing, kind of just in general.
So I grew up from first grade on in the suburbs of Atlanta, in Swanee, Georgia, which was fantastic. We were surrounded by lots of diversity, tons of kids, a great community, and I grew up all the way through high school in that same community. So it was really special to say the very least. And sports was always part of it, part of that childhood.
I mean, I can see that. I mean, both your parents played basketball at Georgia Tech. You want to talk about keeping it in the community, and even your sister played in college as well. I mean, talk to me a little bit about how volleyball became your lane. I mean, was that a big conversation where you're like, Mom and Dad, I don't want to play basketball anymore?
It was a whirlwind and it was definitely not planned or expected. Volleyball was one of those things where one of my basketball teammates' dad was going to be the freshman volleyball coach, and why not get the tall girl, to come play and I can hang out with my friends. So it really started really innocently and just a new adventure that I was excited to go on. And at that point in my life in high school, right, basketball had been my life up until that point. I started in fourth grade and kind of took off from there and hadn't looked back or looked at anything else since then. And once I started playing volleyball, I immediately knew something was different and that I liked it. And there was a joy to it that I maybe hadn't found in other sports that I played.
Yeah.
And we kind of took it step by step, day by day until I knew. And that took a couple of years for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you should say that. So first, I played basketball for one season at the YMCA. I was god awful. It was terrible. And, I kind of quit playing soccer. I used to tell my dad, he still tells me to this day, it's so funny to him how soccer was my life, but I quit it. My mom actually forced me to play volleyball, and I hated it at first, but kind of look where it got us now.
Yeah.
And even for you, so what made a Georgia peach like yourself travel all the way to the Midwest coming from Georgia? I'm from South Carolina myself. Like that's
Yeah.
a big difference culturally, that Southern hospitality. Tell me a little bit about that.
I think for me, Wayne and Susan Krecklow were the only reasons that the
Yeah.
Midwest was even considered. Up until that point, my dream was to stay in the South, stay in the warm, somewhere,
Mhm.
right here. I had my own dreams about that. And through the recruiting process, you really learn what's important to you and what kind of things, you're attracted to.
Yeah.
And it was easy to say that I couldn't be Mizzou because I was in the Midwest.
Mhm.
But after you build those connections and I got on campus, I mean, Mizzou took it all. That is the reason
Totally.
it was the reason that I went there. So
And you kind of touch on a really big point that I think is so important for young girls out there is like empowerment or who's going to help you develop into the next stage of your life. I
yeah.
mean, besides the Krecklows, and I never had the privilege of being able to play for them. I played for Dawn, and I loved her for so many different reasons, but I've only heard stories of how great they were, how they were able to build a dynasty. But I think that reaches that bigger point of women need good mentors and role models to encourage them to keep playing. So,
Yeah.
did you have any other in your circle that you can give a big shout out for you continuing to play volleyball, but evolving into you being the woman you are today?
Yeah, I mean, there's countless people. I think that every person you interact, either leaves an impact on you or they don't.
Yeah.
And I think it starts with the type of people who even believed in me when I was a basketball player, right? Seeing the
Yeah.
things in me I couldn't even see in myself at the time. And then when volleyball came, that same, potential and the energy people put into me. I think my coaches, I remember, you know, they were always they wanted to bring out the light that they saw. So they were always encouraging me to keep going. It's okay. Like if this isn't working out for you, it will, as long as you're okay and you're happy.
Absolutely.
They were able to really plant some seeds that have now grown so fully, even with my teammates in at Mizzou. I think Carly Kahn's a great shout out. I always do because she is just such a special person, a special player, and she really she's a perfect person to represent what it means to live the way that you want athletes to be, which is humble and kind and hardworking. And they tell the truth, but they do it in a way that's delicate and kind. And coaches like Jing at A5,
Wow.
who
Yeah.
were rough, right? They were tough coaches, but at the same time, that love was there. You could tell that they cared about the person behind just the athlete. So those were all really special moments for me, and people who've just instilled the person I am today.
Absolutely. And I think you bring up a good point about how leadership can look different and for so many different people. What was your leadership style like? Like, how did you feel your best self in being able to not only support, your goals and ambitions, but the team around you?
Yeah, I think the most important thing about leadership that I learned was authenticity.
Mm.
And I know for myself as an athlete, was super intense and passionate and I was full of energy.
Mhm.
And then when you step off the court, there is a, different version of yourself that you show up every day. I like to have fun. I like to laugh. I love,
Yeah.
making jokes and kind of creating those type of lighthearted friendships. So I think being able to tie in the two, right? When I'm on the court, I do mean business. I want those things.
Absolutely.
Excellence is the standard, right? And how do I carry that over? And hopefully, encourage my teammates to hold the same standard that I have. Um, to do that, you have to, have relationships with them outside of sport. So I think making sure that both people were present, that you're able to see the person on the other side of you, despite their role, position, or any of those things. I think that that was one of the most important things that I learned, just in terms of leadership, is everyone is different, but it doesn't mean that the standard has to change.
Absolutely. And clearly, I mean, that intensity translated very, very well, not just from a leadership standpoint, but also you as a player. You've had so many accomplishments. And, I knew your name passing by the wall, going upstairs to the coach's office. But when you look back on your career, kind of what moments stand out the most for you?
Yeah, there's a lot of moments, right? And I think that if you play at the Division 1 level, you will, at some point in time face adversity.
Yeah.
I know that after my freshman season, which was a great one of my favorites, learned a lot. I had an injury that just kind of changed the whole perspective of
Yeah.
how I viewed sports, viewed myself, viewed me as a teammate. It made me take a step back and one, being able to play isn't the only thing that makes a athlete valuable, right? So when you're not able to, you kind of have to find where that is. That why, what am I here to do when I don't have a role on the court? And it's absolutely not an option in this moment. I think that made me more compassionate moving forward as a teammate, right? It was always easy for me to compete, and then I absolutely hate losing. Winning school, losing so much worse. So that was always going to be there. But how did I, again, when we talked about just the leadership styles, how could winning not take over from the humanity that is required in athletics?
And I think that's so important too. And I kind of realized that I played during COVID, and you start to realize one, love sports. Sports can give you so many benefits. It can give you some of the highest highs that you can
Yeah.
ever feel or experience. But there are some low lows
Yeah.
during those moments. And, some of those stories never get highlighted because people only want to see the wins, or, if you're playing for an SEC champion or if you become an All-American, but those lows really help you along the way to learn adversity, what it's like to gain perspective, compassion, different things like that. So I love the fact that you brought that up, but it also showcases how sports in general can be an avenue. Like, yes, it's great. You're going to get great benefits from it and be able to tell a great story. But also, there are some things that you're going to have to experience along the way that only
Yeah.
help you, not only right now, but later in life, on how to
Yeah.
bounce back from adversity
Absolutely.
and different things like that. So, what did it mean to you to become one of the most dominant middles in the SEC? Like, did you ever expect for you to be able to reach the highs that you were able to reach? Or did you kind of know you were like, look, I'm coming here, I mean business?
Yeah, so no, I think that the simple answer is no. I didn't expect it, only because of the level of experience I had. I knew that I had raw talent and that was going to either turn into something substantial and consistent, or that maybe that wasn't. And I think for me, the biggest takeaway and how I feel about, even you explaining it like that, right? Being one of the best middle blockers in SEC history is special because of the pride I took in the position that I played and the respect that I have for it now. I always felt like I'm okay with doing the dirty work and I'm okay with maybe not getting the same looks or the attention, right, that can come from other positions and really like taking ownership of that. So I think it means a lot because I respect that position so much. I respected the job that I did.
I think, you're 100% right. So for people that don't really know volleyball specifically, playing as a middle blocker, you really have to enjoy that your moment or where you felt like you played lights out is not always going to get highlighted just
Mhm.
because of the position that you play. I mean, most of the time when you think volleyball in general, the attackers that are getting the most amount of attempts are outside hitters, or
Mhm.
even the ones getting a lot of highlights are the setters that are distributing what your offensive scheme looks like. But the middle really, it's really up to the middle for how plays are orchestrated. I mean, the moment you go up for a block, that sets up the defense. And then the
Mhm.
moment you transition to attack, you're setting up the entire play, regardless of where the
Yeah.
setter plays. And that's a very underrated appreciation. And but I'm curious, how did your confidence get to, where you were able to go and grow, and kind of what helped you figure out like, I'm pretty good. Like I believe in myself and I know what I can do.
Yeah, I think aside from just the work itself, right, we can talk about all the reps we do all day long, but I think it's really understanding what is my role here, as a middle, as a teammate, and kind of like you just said, right, when it comes to blocking, there's a lot of ownership that I could take in that. So I'm gonna take pride in that job and, close the blocks, making sure I'm making the right reads. And part of that too is working my butt off in transition was a huge deal because I knew that if they were scared of me, that my outsides and the people around me were going to have, it just would open up for everybody. And I think that that makes it special because it wasn't just about me. I know that at the end of the day, if there's a one-on-one, I did my job,
Look,
right? I know
let me tell you,
that.
I'm gonna stop you right there. When we were playing, I called something a gotcha moment that I found so much joy. Because if
Mhm.
I'm up in the air and I get the middle on the other side to jump with me, and I set up a one-on-one for my own teammate, first off,
Yep.
I would yell gotcha. I don't know how much like they
I
would
love
appreciate me for saying that, but that
it.
used to get me fired up because I
Absolutely.
didn't get the play. Like I didn't get the kill. I didn't get the
Right.
stat, but I set up something that made our team successful. And I think you're talking about sort of the same situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, right, when you take ownership of that, when you get the ball or you get that block, it is a byproduct of working that hard in moments where you're truly working in selflessness and you're working in that servant leadership mindset, saying, I'm doing this so we all can succeed, right? And yeah, it's a special mindset that really helped me, I guess, be successful in the long run and take the big moments in stride. So,
Absolutely. And, we talk about your success, and I've really enjoyed talking with you because I think we're very like-minded and
yeah.
kind of how we approached. But being able to be inducted into the Mizzou Athletics Hall of Fame, I kind of want to hear what your reaction to that accolade was, but I want to be able to share, both of us, I'm from South Carolina, you're from Georgia originally. We both kind of chose to be at Mizzou, make Missouri our home.
Yeah.
What did that mean to you that you are kind of an outsider coming in? You took ownership of your position, your role. You were very successful, and now you've really gained the appreciation of being able to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. So just kind of tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was a huge shock. I think timing alone, you just don't expect such long life,
Yeah,
long lasting awards or accolades to come at, when you're still in your youth. It feels like it was just not too long ago.
yeah,
And I think for me, it was a true testament and proof of the fact that hard work matters, character matters, and at the end of the day, you reap what you sow. And I'm a big believer in God's faith, just for his plan for everything and what happens behind closed doors and when no one's watching. And I think that the Hall of Fame induction was a true representation of that, right? I don't need a Hall of Fame induction in my head. That was not really even on
yeah,
my checklist of things, but it just comes to prove that, like, what you do matters, and even the places you might not expect them, like, you will be rewarded for your hard work, right? Good things will come back to you and be shown up in a big way even when you just don't expect it.
yeah.
So
And
yeah, it's magical.
you're kind of you're talking about hard work, adversity, so many different skills. I love, and now that I'm done, I've been able to reflect about my time as an athlete, the skills that you gain and the benefits that you get being in a team environment. I mean, you're around so many diverse groups of women. You learn so many transferable skills. I think the possibilities are endless. So, kind of how has those skills that you learned then helped you now that you're fully in womanhood?
Yeah, I think volleyball is such a special sport for a lot of reasons. And I think that the one that I can identify with the most now, just as a woman and, everyday life, is the importance of small details,
Mm,
the importance of being process focused, and just the patience required for that, right? And in that moment of I'm not sure or I don't have it yet, volleyball is one of those sports that teaches you that what you don't have right now, you can have in a week, you can have in 2 weeks, you can figure it out, and you can even build on top of that. So it's definitely about the details. It's all about the small things, being patient and due diligence, right? Taking one step at a time, one rep at a time. As you probably heard that a million times in your career,
oh,
but
yeah.
it's so true. Even what you do, every day, behind closed doors when you're not on the court, if you have that mindset, I found myself to find a lot of peace in it, but enjoyment in the things that aren't always comfortable or the things that you're still working at. So,
That was a beautiful answer. I think you really encompass like the skills that you were able to learn and grow from and make you who you are today, essentially. You know, as you look to the next generation and young female athletes who kind of either want to get into sport or volleyball specifically, and maybe even want to follow in your footsteps, what advice would you give them?
yeah, it would start really with being true to yourself. I think that there is a level of uniqueness, and there's a light that everyone has to provide this world, and you've got to kind of know where that is for you first, and it's hard to figure out. It just is. But wherever you are is to bring that to everything that you do. I think that that is so important, and to know that when adversity comes, you sticking through it and bringing your best self is going to be the things that prepare you for the moments that you're waiting for, looking for one day, and that those lessons that you learn in the hard times and in the uncertainty of it all is gonna be just the best gifts that you can give yourself. So, give yourself grace, work hard, and just bring that light.
Yeah. Now, kind of a similar question, but
Mhm.
different. If you could talk to freshman year Alyssa, what would you tell her?
That's a hard question for me, right? Because I think about how much is going on in your freshman
Yeah, yeah.
body, right? You know what it's like. It's like you're in this world. not alone, but like alone, right? You're off on your own. There's a lot of responsibilities from day one. And I would say to myself to slow down a little bit, right? To smell the roses and take your time and enjoy the little things, right? The bus rides and the
Oh,
times of
God.
waiting in the locker room and times before practice when you're kicking around the ball and just kind of volleying around to really just take it all in, slow down a little bit because it's gone before you know it.
Look, that's like right now, and I've shared this with some people, and you probably got to ask, do you miss playing?
Hmm.
And people have asked me that, and I've said, of course I miss competition. Of course I
Yeah.
miss those moments, but the things I miss the most is joking around in the locker room. I
Yeah.
miss being in weights, messing around with our strength coach at the time, just laughing, having fun, because those memories, you can't really replicate them in other environments. And just being able to stop and smell the roses and realize where you're at and the girls
Yeah.
that surround you is one of the best things ever. So I love that advice.
Hmm.
So, I just want to say thank you so much for being able to tell your story, be able to empower the next generation of women and hopefully encourage them to keep playing. And so thank you so much for being able to sit down with me and share a little bit about, you and being able to get past the dominant middle blocker that was in the SEC and was one of the best in Mizzou history and getting able to understand the real story behind you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you so much for having me and, creating a space for me to tell my story. I think that what you're doing is absolutely incredible. And from one medal to another, right? The respect that you've given the sport and the way that you played that game, I mean, is special in its own right. And you are an inspiration to all women across the country and all the girls who are looking up to somebody. They can trust you and look towards you. So thank you for having me.
Well, you're welcome. And, for everyone out there, I'm excited that this is episode one for Play Her Story. Keep following along. I'm excited to be able to keep pushing stories like this out there and being able to encourage one more girl to be able to keep playing. Thank you.
Thanks so much.